So after you've chosen a material that's appropriate for double-sided printing, that's going to ensure your success, next is loading the material. There's different ways to do this. I'm just going to show you the way that I prefer to load it and the considerations I take in order to do double-sided printing. I've run a lot of rolls of it. I have a little system. It's not the only system. It's just my system, and I found that it works pretty well. I'll explain some other approaches to doing it along the way as well, but I'll start with this one. So I have here a 560. The 560 has the new Takeup system. So it's a little bit different than the 300 series, the 360, 365 for double-sided printing. The double-sided printing has this spindle here, which I'll discuss in a little bit. There's a few considerations on the spindle to be aware of when you're running on a 360, 365. Let me set that back for a second. Now the first thing is you have to decide how much of a lead you're going to provide yourself. You have to keep this in mind. The front end of this material is going to be the end of the material for side B. So this front end here, you need enough so that the feed roll, you'll have enough on the front end so when it rolls forward, it has to not just print, but it also has to go down through the curing zone. And if you skimp even by, say, an inch, and you get almost to the edge of the curing zone and then the printer stops, that means you have however many inches of material that is not cured, and you'll have to get the hairdryer out or something to try to cure that ink. If you give yourself enough material on the front end, then you will always have enough material when you're running it through that it can print and then roll down through the print zone and then still be a little bit on the roll so that you have a little tail. Now, you don't want to waste material, but at the same time, you don't want to run out of material. So please keep that in mind. On a 365, 360, this is a much longer distance from the print platen, where the print carriage is, all the way down to the take-up reel. So you'll probably have a slightly different system with a 365 because you don't want to waste that much material. With a 500 series, you're almost right on by just putting it on the take-up roll to start. With the 365, what I usually do is I will run, you're going to have to put a lead in of some kind. So I'll usually run some samples or something, just something that I can use for other purposes, give myself a little leader. Once that's done, then I always have that as sort of a buffer zone that will have some value to me. Or I know people that what they'll do is they'll run the banner as a two-sided but not double-sided. In other words, they'll do, let's say, 2 up, 2 banners, and then they use that, they sew those together to make a double-sided just for those. That uses the waist on the front and the back that you need for a leader, and then those 4 are just a little different in that they're 2 panels sewn together. I've seen people do that. That makes sense. You have almost no waste that way, and then you can run the bulk of the material as a double-sided job. What I have here is set up and ready to go. There's a few things I'm going to look for. When I load the material, I do not load the material and call it anything special. I do not tell it you are double-sided before I load anything. I load just like I normally would. I do a manual load. I put the material in, I get it all set up, I make sure the skew is nice and tight, and I leave it alone. I will tell the media you are a double-sided media when I'm ready to. Until then, it's just any old media. Now, when I build the preset, so this is a double-sided blockout that I have loaded on here. It's a scrim banner. When I build the preset, I will usually build a single-sided preset if I'm making the preset. And then I clone it. And in the name, I name it whatever it is, say Bantex 18-ounce double-sided. So I have 2 presets on the printer. One is single-sided, so anytime I'm running one workflow, it's called single-sided. The other one is called double-sided. The double-sided one, I turn on all of the double-sided features in the RIP. Because sometimes you'll run a banner single-sided, and then sometimes you run it double-sided. I want to distinguish between the two. I also want my preset to always have a name that says, you are double-sided preset. They're identical. It's just one has the double-sided attributes turned on, and it's always going to run double-sided. The other one has the double-sided attributes in the RIP turned off. It views it as a single-sided project. Okay? The next thing I do is after I load it, I'm going to put it on the Takeup roll. Or I'm going to print my lead-in print, and then I'm going to roll it back and put it on the Takeup roll. I usually, with double-sided printing, do not put it on the Takeup roll as I'm running. And the reason why is because double-sided printing is very sensitive to the accuracy of skew. It's also sensitive to the accuracy of making sure everything goes on the Takeup roll correctly. If it starts drifting or torquing or walking because things aren't even on the Takeup roll, it's a very good chance your double-sided project is not going to come out well. So take the steps to secure the media to the Takeup roll and make sure everything is lined up properly.